how many business cards do you have lying around in your house? Do you remember how inspired you were after going to a conference, and the second you walk out of that conference, you're back to reality? Perhaps the most overlooked part of going to a conference, but yet the most important, is the follow-up. Going to conferences without following up is exactly like going to Disneyland. You have an amazing time for a day, but then you're back to reality. So what I want you to think about in this video is how to create your own reality with proper follow-ups that create amazing connections and ways that help you grow your business and grow yourself as an individual. After some of my most recent conferences, such as the Restaurants Canada Show and Collision 2019, there's a few things that I always make sure I do so that I can have the right follow-up with the right people, and I really want to make sure that people remember me for the things that I learned and my perspectives on the things that were talked about at the conference. So firstly, I always love to have my notes, and I love to put those into an email, into a LinkedIn status update at the very least, or of course an article. So sharing this with people is a great excuse to allow them to better let the conference sink in, and at the same time anchor your perspectives to their experience, so that in the future, of course, they have trust in you and they look at you as a thought leader. So the ways that I actually like to follow up with someone, usually via email, is first of all, I add them on LinkedIn, and then in my email, I'll always make them remember who I am, even to the point of what I was wearing. So I say, hey, I was the guy who was wearing the black shirt, and we discussed how ridiculous it is regarding the slimness of restaurant margins, right? Some kind of point that you both exchanged, very important to put in there so they can really remember you, especially if it's a speaker. And lastly, you want to say, hey, we were speaking more about this, or we saw opportunity in perhaps discussing more how we can both collaboratively do X. When do you have 15 minutes to have a quick follow-up call for us to continue the conversation? So you're being memorable, you're re-emphasizing an important conversation you are having, and thirdly, you give them a call to action. And usually I'll ask them when works for you, or you can book me on my calendar. One of the things that I've recently started to do for my follow-ups is the follow-up after the follow-up. So usually after I follow up, people may not respond. Busy, on vacation, still traveling. So I always send a follow-up afterwards, whether it be a month later, sometimes even 3 months later. It could be 2 different sequences. And usually I ask, hey, now that the dust has settled from the conference, what's changed? Have you got any new business? Have any of the topics discussed at the actual conference been a bit more opened up in your world through an article or perhaps a different conference? And I'll also ask, are you speaking at an upcoming conference, or are you going to a conference that's related, just to keep a connection going and to make sure that you stay top of mind. Really important stuff that you can easily record on your CRM or even on your iCalendar reminders. Another way to follow up does not have to actually be directly after the conference. I mean, of course, you'll send that follow-up email, you add them on LinkedIn, but then it's about, you're now dating virtually in a way, right? Like you're following them on Twitter, you're liking their LinkedIn posts, and hopefully liking your LinkedIn posts, right? And I think once in a while, it's good to put in your calendar or your CRM to follow up in 3 months and say, hey, how have things been since the dust has settled at the conference? Have you done any business? Is there anyone interesting you can connect me with? What's the next conference you're going to? And if it's a speaker, where else are you speaking? So I think it's thinking beyond the immediate follow-up, nurturing someone, and at this point, look, you've created a very intimate in-person connection, and now is the best time to leverage online tools to keep that going. Versus sometimes if you just rely on online tools to nurture connections, it can be done, but it's a lot harder. You have the advantage of them having shaking your hand, looked at you in the eyes, and really made a connection. So now it's about how do you nurture that connection throughout the lifetime. And I've got so many stories of people that have thought about me a year later, and we've done business together just off us staying in touch. So remember, it's definitely a marathon, it's not a sprint. Okay, that's it for today. We've gone over awesome ways to do follow-ups with people after a conference, because without a follow-up, there's no follow-through, and your conference experience was more entertainment versus actually adding value to your business and to your life. So look, if you have a conference friend who perhaps you met at the last show you were at, flip them over this video, subscribe to the YouTube link, and I'd love to know from you, what are the ways that you best follow up with people after conferences? Thanks so much, and this is the last segment of how to crush conferences. We talked about how to prepare for a conference, how to show up at a conference, and how to follow up.